The 30-day mental toughness challenge. This is one of the most powerful mindset exercises I ever did. I was like 19 or 20 years old. I was back in college, and I read this book by Dr. Don Green, Fight Your Fears and Win. It's what made me want to get involved in sports psychology. And one of the exercises he recommended was every day for the next 30 days, do one thing that pushes yourself outside of your comfort zone, one thing that makes you scared, one thing that puts a little knot in your stomach, pushing yourself through it. Now, why is that important? Because let's say right now, on a wrestling mat, there's several circles, there's several boxes in circles. So I like to use that analogy. There's a rectangular box in the middle of the wrestling mat. Now let's say me as a person, my comfort zone is the little box in the middle of the wrestling mat. If I don't push up against that comfort zone 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, I'm the same person. My comfort zone hasn't changed. But if I do push up against that comfort zone on a regular basis, eventually I could break free of that little rectangle, and now I'm in the circle that's bigger, but that surrounds me. But if I don't push up against that circle 5, 10, 20 years down the road, I'm still in the same comfort zone. I never get any better, right? So it's kind of like evolve or die. If you're not growing, you're dying. So we've got to push ourselves outside of that comfort zone. And if we do break through that middle circle, now our comfort zone becomes the big circle. And if we don't stop, it becomes the full wrestling mat. And then if you still don't stop, it becomes the whole gym, eventually the whole building, the whole city, the whole state. You get the picture. You got to keep pushing up against that comfort zone. Another benefit of this exercise is that you prove to yourself on a regular basis that you are a mentally tough person. Now, I could tell you you're very mentally tough, and I believe you already are. Your coaches can tell you you're mentally tough. Your parents can tell you you're mentally tough, and it does something. It does help us when we hear it from other people. But it's more powerful when we prove it to ourselves. You want to prove to yourself that you're mentally tough. You want to prove that you could get that feeling in the pit of your stomach and plow through anyway. So you got to be a little bit of a lawyer. A lawyer uses evidence to build a case to prove a point. You're going to build evidence for a case for yourself to prove the point that you are mentally tough. The evidence is these 30 days where you do one thing every day, pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone. Now, the biggest mistake most people make with this is they do something physical. They'll go for a long run, they'll do 1,000 push-ups, whatever it might be, it becomes something physical. We're going to get to that in later mental toughness exercises. But right now I want you to really think about something that makes you nervous, something that makes you uncomfortable. So the idea is getting comfortable, being uncomfortable. It could be reading in front of your class. It could be volunteering to do something. Anything that makes you feel a little bit weird, I don't want to do this, you get that pit in your stomach, you plow through. I will say, you don't want it to be something that's risky. You don't want it to be something that's going to be dangerous. But when you feel that the urge, I don't want to do this, you do it anyway. Ask someone out on a date, right? Assuming you don't already have a significant other. Have something that you're doing that's going to push yourself. And it could be something sport related. We see a lot of top athletes at the high school level, the middle school level, and even at the upper levels, they're still uncomfortable competing. Why? Because in competition, there's a winner, there's a loser, and we get worried a little bit. So if you fall into that boat, I know I did back in sports, push yourself to compete with an opponent outside of practice. Now this is important. In wrestling, we would do live wrestling, practicing a match with our team. Everyone was wrestling live at the same time. The reason why I don't like that as a courage of the day is because it doesn't feel as much like a match. I want you to make the parameters as similar to a competition as possible. So wear the gear that you're going to wear. Have someone referee the match, keep the time, and be the only two people on that mat. So now it's clearly just you and your opponent. It feels very different. So, and even if you weren't a wrestler, it doesn't make a difference. Make the competition very similar to practice. Now, maybe you can't compete with someone for your sport. Maybe you're just not around people who are at the same level as you athletically in your sport. You can challenge people to other activities, a push-up contest, a running race. And what I like about that is you kind of do get that. If you're a competitive person, you get that feeling in the pit of your stomach, like, okay, it's on now. I'm competing. I got to be ready to go. So you get to practice pushing through that competitive feeling. And by doing that, you become more comfortable. The best competitors, they compete the most. So that's what you want to do. But it's got to be something that makes you a little bit mentally and emotionally uncomfortable. Otherwise, we're not doing the job. Again, I'll say it again because most people fall into this trap. Do not do something that's physically exhausting. There'll be later workshops, there'll be later worksheets and exercises we do for that. Right now, pick something that's going to mentally and emotionally push your buttons, break free of that comfort zone. And then after these 30 days, you have 30 pieces of information. You have 30 pieces of information that prove to you that you are a very mentally tough person. After I did this, anytime I look back at that list now, I'm still like, man, that was really good. And I also built the habit of when I get that feeling in my stomach, I say, this is my courage of the day. Even though my 30 days were up 10 years ago or whatever it was, probably more than that, I still think this is my courage of the day. So it becomes a way of life. And that's going to help you, even if it's not sport related, this is going to absolutely help you in sport competition scenarios because you're used to plowing through the discomfort. And as life goes on in your career, in your relationships, you're going to be in uncomfortable situations. Trust me, you're going to be happy you did this, and you're going to be happy you made it a habit of being comfortable, getting comfortable, being uncomfortable. Mindset makes the difference.